Hey, we are delighted to have our good friend back with us, Erick Stakelbeck. And of course, you see him on theDove TV because he hosts Stakelbeck on Terror on CBN. And we are delighted with the special relationship we have with all of those folks back there. They do an excellent job. And I consider Erick really the top guy in the country when it comes to knowing what's going on with all the terrorist activity around the world. Erick, buddy, good to see you.
Harry, thanks so much for that introduction, and it's great to be back with you.
Hey, a lot going on. I don't even know where we start. Let me just ask you briefly, do you think this president has anything in him that would be pro-Israel?
No, I don't. I mean, I think he made that transparently clear, Perry. Look, in his first term, he made it clear enough with his pressure on Israel to really withdraw to independent borders, those pre-1967 borders. A lot of us call them the Auschwitz borders, Perry, because look, Israel would not be able to defend itself, and repeatedly publicly criticizing Prime Minister Netanyahu, yet never putting pressure on the Palestinians. That's number one. Number two, Perry, if you look at his track before he became president, in his younger days in college as a state senator, as a U.S. senator, traveled in anti-Israel circles and was with a lot of well-known pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel activists, which brings me to the present day. His choice for Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, was a total snubbing of the nose at Israel, at the Israel community here in the U.S. is notorious. I'm here in Washington, D.C., Perry. Chuck Hagel is notorious for being anti-Israel, and I believe he's anti-Semitic. I believe it's much deeper. I don't believe he just opposes Israel. I believe he's opposed to the Jewish people. So that is who President Obama is. Now that it is his second term, there are no restrainers. Chuck Hagel is his hand. Chuck Hagel, an anti-Semite, is President Obama's hand-picked selection for Secretary of Defense, and that says it all.
All right, boy, that just opens up so much, Erick. First of all, do you think, I understand now today the vote, they're going to go back to the full Senate on Chuck Hagel. Do you think there's enough now on this guy that it's possible he could be voted down? Where they need 60 votes in the Senate to make this happen?
Yes, Barry, they do. You know, and I was, after his horrendous train wreck performance before the Senate 2 weeks ago, I got my hopes up that Hagel would not get confirmed. Now I fear that he may just get confirmed. I hate to say it. And only about Israel. I mean, this is a guy, I think he is going to get confirmed. But I'm not only concerned about his stance on Israel. Look, this is a guy who opposes against Iran. Sanctions. I mean, even President Obama supposedly supports sanctions against Iran. That's been his policy over the last few years. So Hagel even opposes sanctions. What action does he support in terms of Iran? Iran is not only a threat to Israel. A nuclear Iran would have America in its crosshairs. Remember, Iran considers Israel the little Satan. They consider America the great Satan. We are the ultimate prize. We are the ultimate target. Hagel is also a guy who wants to have dialogue with Hamas, a terror group which has killed Americans. Also, he is with President Obama in to really neuter the U.S. military, cut funding, cut military programs, cut military spending, cut the missile defense program that would help keep America safe against these threats like Iran, like North Korea, that are developing long-range missiles to reach our shores. So he's a disastrous pick, Perry, on a lot of levels, not just for Israel, but for America. And I do believe, I hope I am wrong. I pray that I'm wrong, but I believe there's a good chance he will get confirmed.
All right. Why is the faith community in America tolerating this? Why are we not yelling and screaming at this administration for their treatment of Israel, and now with the selling of F-16s to Egypt? And I mean, the whole thing, we seem to be dead in the water on this issue. Why do you think that's the case?
You know, there's a spirit of complacency, I think, Perry. I look at one organization that has stepped up and really led the fight here on Capitol Hill against the Hagel nomination was Christians United for Israel, CUFI, Pastor Hagee's group. A lot of even the Jewish organizations have taken a pass on this Hagel fight, which is a real head scratcher. I think in the Christian community, though, there's a spirit of complacency. And I think in some ways, I think November, when President Obama got reelected, I think so many people were trying to, even in the Christian community in America, traditional God and country Christian patriotic Americans wanted to see him defeated. I think that when he did win, and a lot of people thought he was going to lose, had their hopes up high,
right.
I think it took the wind out of the sails of a lot of people. I really do. And I think people are saying, wow, people are trying to, and he's been aggressive since his second term has started. He's been on the offensive. He's been completely neutralizing the Republican Party, and he's aggressively pushing his agenda. I think a lot of Americans right now, conservative-minded Americans, Christian-minded Americans, are on their heels a little bit right now.
Yeah.
As he's advancing. So I think people better regather themselves and do it quickly and wake up.
Yeah, because I've always said, Eric, I think he'll be somewhat as a quote-unquote kind of a kamikaze president now for his agenda for this first 2 years, because he knows that the 2014 election is coming up and he could lose control of the Congress. So it's pedal to the metal for him right now.
Absolutely. I mean, he believes that he won. I mean, not only he won the election, he has won the battle against Republicans, against conservatives. He won in 2008, won the election. Now against overwhelming odds, look, his first term was a train wreck in many ways, economically, foreign policy, Benghazi, etc. But he still won in 2012. Yes, Republicans have the House, but Obama looks at that and says, who are you? We have the Senate. We have the presidency. I will just pass executive order after executive order and get my way and get my agenda across. Remember, this is a guy, when he ran in 2008, who said he wanted to fundamentally transform America.
Yeah.
So his goal, which is chilling, his goal before he leaves office is to fundamentally transform America. And right now he is succeeding.
All right, let's go back over to Israel just for a moment, Eric. And Netanyahu wins re-election. It was fairly narrow. He's in that coalition building mode now. He has to build, what, 63 to get his coalition in the legislature there. So how's he doing?
You know, he's doing well. I think in terms of building this, Perry, I do think the election results on January 22nd were a big disappointment in many ways to Netanyahu's Likud party. For whatever reason, lost some seats there. So now he's got to form this broad coalition. But I think he's going to be okay. And I actually like the way this coalition is shaping up. Number one, Likud, Netanyahu's party, will still be the biggest faction in the coalition. And viewers need to understand, Israeli politics is much different than American politics. I just want to make that point. We have, you know, in our elections, Democrat versus Republican, individuals, President Obama versus Mitt Romney. In Israel, it's party against party. So whichever party gets the most votes ends up winning the government. But many times they hold a coalition. Imagine, say, Republicans, Democrats, and Greens uniting to form one government. That's what Israelis have to do. So Netanyahu's Likud party, the most votes, yet they have to form a coalition, probably with a group called the Jewish Home Party, which I'm very excited about, Perry. They're Zionistic, they're religious, a lot of ex-military guys, very, very good people. A lot of them live in Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland. So Likud's probably going to form a coalition with them and a party called the Yair Lapid Party, which is a more moderate party, but at least they're not left-wing. Interesting things coming down the pike politically in Israel, but Netanyahu's position, I believe, is secure, and it needs to be with the Iran threat looming.
You know, Eric, I've had several folks on live via Skype from Israel over the last couple of weeks, and one of the last persons that I have on was the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and we were yakking back and forth, and I said, Mayor, of course, doesn't the Israelis know that the faith community in America is with them? And here was his answer that really just absolutely rocked me. He said, yeah, but you guys reelected Obama.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine, David Rubin. He's a great guy, and he's a real a man of God. And yeah, I mean, we reelected Obama. not you and I don't believe, but the American people reelected Obama, Perry. And I think David Rubin, the former mayor of Shiloh, makes a great point. Remember, he lived in America for the first half of his life, too. He's a New York native. So he has his pulse on America. This country has changed. The country you and I grew up in is gone, and I have serious doubts that it's ever going to come back the way it was. We have changed, and for the worse. Our character as a people, I believe, has really changed for the worse, and I believe the biggest part of that is God out of our culture. And I believe as long as we take God out of our culture and out of our country, we're going to suffer for it. And that's the lack of discernment. When you don't have godly wisdom and godly discernment, you will vote for a man like Obama.
Erick, your quick thoughts about Secretary Kerry and how he may play in the big scene?
Awful. Perry, it's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's disturbing. President Obama's picks. We mentioned Chuck Hagel for Secretary, Kerry at the State Department, and John Brennan as the CIA director. A friend of mine named Barry Rubin, a really good journalist, called them the four horsemen of the foreign policy apocalypse. Whoa. And I tend to agree with them. They are that bad. Hagel, anti-Israel. You have Kerry, so naive. As much as he's traveled the world, this is a guy who rushed to embrace the Muslim Brotherhood. And after the Egyptian revolution, these guys are, we can deal with these guys. Kerry all Syria before the Syrian civil war kicked off, embracing Assad, the brutal dictator who's killed 60,000 of his own people. Not good at all. He's not particularly friendly towards Israel either. He's going to pressure Israel to give land to the Palestinians. So you have Hagel, President Obama, and then John Brennan, who's also not heading the CIA, who's also not friendly to Israel and who is an Islam apologist, very soft on Islam and Islamic radicalism. So this is bad. This is bad no matter how you slice it. And I believe all of them will get confirmed. All right. Hagel, I'm holding out, but my will.
Well, the votes are there. It's the bottom line. The votes are there in the Senate to do it. So let me ask you this, Erick. Where do you see the biggest terrorist threat out there right now?
I am very concerned. I'm always concerned. As you guys know, we talked about it here, Perry. I wrote a book called The Terrorist Next Door about concentrating mainly on the homegrown threat. Right. So I'm always concerned about these lone wolf types, guys who are radicalized on the internet, who might not have any direct links to Al-Qaeda overseas, but they went to an Al-Qaeda website, say the internet gets radicalized and then goes to blow a shopping mall up. That's always a huge concern. But my other main concern is Iran and Hezbollah. Iran and Hezbollah, when you talk about Iran, you have to talk about Hezbollah because the two are interchangeable. Iran created Hezbollah. They are the long arm of the Iranian regime, the long terrorist arm. They have a network, Perry, throughout the Western Hemisphere, in the U.S., but also in Latin America, in places like Venezuela, where they have a relationship with Hugo Chavez and regime there. Also Ecuador, Bolivia. They even have a presence in Mexico, doorstep. And last year, I was at some very interesting congressional testimony here, Perry, where Congressman Peter King of New York, said that some 200 Iranian operatives are here on U.S. soil. Whoa. So to me, that is a major, major concern. Iran is establishing a forward base in our hemisphere to strike America, along with Hezbollah, their proxy. So if war breaks out in the Middle East and Iran's nuclear weapons facilities are targeted by the U.S., by Israel, expect some possible blowback from these Iranian assets in the Western Hemisphere. They might not strike on U.S. soil, but they could strike, say, an American embassy in a place, in Latin America. We saw what they did in Benghazi, our consulate there. They can target American interest throughout the world as well. So Iran, Hezbollah, major concern of mine and of everyone's who's watching this.
All right. Internally, has there been anything surface or anything foiled that we don't know about?
That we don't know about. No. There's always I mean, the biggies usually we know about, but there are always and things percolating behind the scenes, that you're not going to hear about, and even guys like me aren't going to hear about some of the things going on. But I can tell you there is a constant stream of intelligence and chatter going on from around the world. Like Al-Qaeda are devising new plans to strike America, either on American soil or our embassies and our interest U.S. troops overseas. Literally, every day these evil men are devising new plans to strike us. It's an everyday thing. And one interesting nugget, we're talking about Iran. U.S. intelligence officials now say, look, it used to be the top threats we'd hear every day in our briefings would be Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. Now, Iran and Hezbollah are moving up to the top of that chain in the daily intelligence briefing. Yes, you have the Al-Qaeda threat, but Iran and Hezbollah are really creeping up. And if war breaks out in the Middle East and Iran is involved, expect some blowback. Real quick, another thing to keep an eye on, intelligence officials I talked to are concerned about Al-Qaeda in North Africa. We had this whole hostage crisis in Algeria ago, Perry. Americans were taken hostage there. This Al-Qaeda North Africa branch are really growing, and they're starting to set their eyes on Europe and on the U.S. They want to branch out. They want to make a splash. So Al-Qaeda is anything but on the run, as President Obama has suggested. They are still very much alive, and they're finding new safe havens like North Africa.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the other day that Iran is very close. Now, obviously, he has intelligence that are second to none. So how close is Israel from going in and neutralizing their nuclear capabilities?
You know, Perry, it's so interesting. Since 2009, for about 4 years, I've been saying Israel's going to do it. This is the year. I've learned anymore about when Israel's going to do it. I just believe they are going to do it. It's interesting. President Obama is making his first visit as president to Israel in a few weeks. Actually, I think the first week of March he'll be there. So I believe, and Israeli officials have said, that he's probably going there to pressure them not do anything about Israel. Because Netanyahu said, I think back in September, that spring 2013 was kind of the red where he thinks, man, if Iran doesn't give up a nuclear program by then, they're not gonna. Well, they're not gonna. He's absolutely right about that. But is President Obama going to Israel to pressure Netanyahu not to act? Probably. He's probably going to tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, Israel shouldn't do anything about it. We will take care of it. We have your back. I believe that the Obama administration is willing to allow Iran to go nuclear. They believe, Perry, that they can contain a nuclear Iran, just like the Cold War, mutually assured destruction with the Soviets. But it was a lot different back then. The Soviets were living for this world. The Iranians, fanatical Islamists, are living for the next world. They have no compunction, no hesitation to sacrifice millions of their own people in an effort to wipe Israel off the map and America. You're not dealing with rational actors. And this administration, unfortunately, just doesn't get that. But I do believe Israel, especially with Netanyahu at the helm, I just see any scenario. My conversation on and off the record with Israeli leaders for the past 8 years, I can't see any scenario, Perry, in which Israel, especially under Netanyahu, allows Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, Eric, absolutely fascinating, yet breathtaking, certainly worthy of serious prayer and involvement by everybody. I want to say thank you to you and all of your team there at CBN. You guys do a wonderful job. We're so excited to carry your programming, and your program in particular, Eric. You just do a wonderful job. I don't know where we get all the information, but we pray for God's safety and protection as you go out and get the truth. Keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you, Perry. Thanks so much for having our CBN programs on the Dove. We love the partnership, and God bless you, and God bless everyone out there in Oregon.